Dogs don't spend 5 years chasing ghosts unless someone taught them what love feels like first. Rain hammered against the windshield hard enough to blur the Chicago skyline into streaks of gold and blue light as I tightened my grip on the steering wheel and glanced at the clock glowing on the dashboard. 1:47 a.m. Most people were asleep. Detective Ethan Cole never was. Especially not lately. Rex sat in the passenger seat of the old Ford Explorer, ears alert, dark eyes scanning the empty streets like he understood every bad feeling crawling beneath my skin. Maybe he did. German shepherds like Rex were trained to detect fear, explosives, narcotics. But nobody trained him to understand loneliness. That part came naturally. "You hungry, buddy?" I asked quietly. Rex glanced at me, tail thumping once against the seat before returning his attention to the rain outside. The city looked different after midnight. Cleaner in some places. More dangerous in others. Neon signs reflected across flooded pavement while steam curled from sewer grates like the whole city was trying to breathe through exhaustion. My phone buzzed near the cup holder. Unknown number. Again. Third time tonight. I ignored it. Rex didn't. His ears twitched instantly. He stared at the vibrating phone, low growl rumbling in his throat. "Yeah," I muttered. "I've got a bad feeling too." 2 months earlier, a confidential informant disappeared 3 hours before meeting me near Navy Pier. A week later, another witness backed out of testifying against a corruption ring buried deep inside Chicago's police department. Every lead I touched vanished. Every street camera glitched at the wrong moment. Somebody powerful was cleaning up loose ends before I could reach them. And now they knew I was getting close. Rain pounded harder as I turned beneath the elevated train tracks near South Clark Street. The warehouse district loomed ahead, dark and abandoned except for one building at the far end with a single light glowing through a cracked second-story window. Rex sat upright immediately. His posture changed. Focused. Sharp. Professional. K9 instincts taking over. "Easy," I whispered, parking across the street. "We check it out and go home." But the moment I killed the engine, Rex started barking. Not aggressive. Warning me. I'd worked with him almost 6 years. I knew every sound he made. This bark meant danger. My pulse slowed instead of speeding up. Funny how fear works after enough years as a detective. It stops feeling loud. Stops feeling dramatic. Fear becomes quiet. Calculated. Like a voice whispering inside your chest telling you something is wrong before your brain catches up. I stepped out into the freezing rain, coat instantly soaking through as Rex jumped beside me. The warehouse stood silent except for the distant hum of thunder rolling across the city. Broken windows. Rusted loading docks. The smell of wet concrete and old oil thick in the air. Then Rex froze. Completely froze. His nose lifted toward the darkness near the loading entrance. A low growl vibrated deep in his chest. I followed his stare and saw it. A black Mercedes parked behind the building with fresh rain sliding down the hood. Engine still warm. Someone was here. My hand moved instinctively toward the radio clipped to my shoulder. Static answered me. No signal. No backup. Just rain. Just silence. And somewhere inside that warehouse, someone waiting for us. The warehouse door groaned when I pushed it open, the sound echoing through the darkness like the building itself was warning me to turn around. Rainwater dripped from my coat onto the concrete floor while Rex moved ahead of me, silent now, every muscle in his body tight with focus. The beam from my flashlight cut through rows of rusted machinery and abandoned shipping crates covered in dust thick enough to tell me nobody had worked here in years. But somebody had been here tonight. Fresh footprints tracked across the floor toward the back offices overlooking the loading dock. Rex sniffed the air once and pulled hard on the leash. Slow down, I whispered, though my own heartbeat had already started climbing. Somewhere above us, metal creaked softly. Not the building settling. Footsteps. I reached for the radio again. Nothing but static. Chicago Police Department Detective Ethan Cole standing alone inside an empty warehouse at nearly 2 in the morning with no backup and a dog that looked ready to tear through concrete walls if I let him. Smart decision-making at its finest. Rex stopped suddenly near a stack of crates and stared toward the second-floor balcony. His ears flattened. Low growl again. The kind that vibrated through his chest before danger showed itself. Then a voice cut through the darkness. You came alone. Male. Calm. Familiar. Too familiar. My flashlight snapped upward, catching the outline of a man leaning against the railing above. Dark coat. Black gloves. Face hidden beneath shadows. But I knew that voice. Every nerve in my body tightened instantly. You have about 3 seconds to explain why you have been calling my phone, I said. The man chuckled softly. Still stubborn. Rex barked violently, lunging forward hard enough that the leash burned across my palm. The stranger did not flinch. He rested both hands on the railing and stepped slightly into the light. Silver hair near the temples. Expensive watch catching the dim glow overhead. Vincent Hale. Billionaire real estate developer. Public philanthropist. Rumored fixer for half the politicians in Illinois. I had spent 6 months trying to connect his name to missing evidence, witness intimidation, and dirty money moving through city contracts. Every lead disappeared before I could prove anything. You should not have come here tonight, detective, Vincent said quietly. Then stop inviting me, I answered. Rain thundered against broken windows above us while Rex continued growling non-stop, eyes locked on Vincent with terrifying intensity. Vincent noticed. I saw something flicker across his face for half a second. Recognition. Fear maybe. Interesting dog, he murmured. He remembers people well. My stomach tightened. Have we met before? Vincent looked away toward the storm outside. No, he said after a pause that lasted too long. But someday he may save your life. Before I could answer, Rex suddenly jerked toward a side hallway buried in darkness, barking harder than before. Not at Vincent this time. At something else. Someone else. Then I heard it. A door slamming deep inside the warehouse followed by footsteps. Running toward the rear exit. Vincent's expression changed instantly. You need to leave, he said sharply. Now. But Rex was already pulling me toward the hallway, and somewhere ahead in the darkness, another pair of footsteps started running. The footsteps echoed through the warehouse like a countdown timer running out of seconds. Rex exploded forward before I could stop him, claws scraping across the concrete as he dragged me through the narrow hallway lined with broken office windows and rusted filing cabinets overturned years ago. Somewhere ahead, a metal door slammed open and cold rain blasted inside. Stop! I shouted, already running, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly across peeling walls and puddles reflecting flashes of lightning. The figure ahead moved fast. Hood pulled low. Dark jacket. Tall build. Whoever it was knew the warehouse better than I did because they disappeared around corners before the light could fully catch them. Rex barked non-stop now, sharp and furious, the kind of bark he used during tactical pursuits back when we worked narcotics raids together. I had trusted that sound with my life more times than I could count. We burst through the rear exit into freezing rain near the loading docks where rows of abandoned trailers sat like giant rusted tombstones beneath the storm. The figure sprinted between them, nearly vanishing into the darkness. Rex pulled harder. Easy! I yelled, breath burning in my chest as we chased after the moving shadow. My shoes splashed through ankle-deep water while thunder rolled overhead so loudly it shook the metal containers around us. Then suddenly Rex stopped dead. So hard the leash snapped tight against my wrist. He stood frozen beside an old blue trailer with faded shipping numbers barely visible beneath rust. His growling returned instantly. Low. Dangerous. Focused. I raised the flashlight slowly toward the trailer door and saw fresh scratches near the lock. Somebody had opened it recently. My pulse pounded harder. The rain smelled like oil and wet steel and something else underneath. Cigarette smoke. Recent. Rex stepped closer, nose twitching rapidly. Then he whimpered. Not fear. Recognition. I crouched beside him and touched his neck gently. His fur was soaked through but his eyes never left the trailer. You know something, do not you? I whispered. Lightning flashed across the dockyard for half a second and illuminated muddy footprints leading away from the trailer toward the riverfront. One set only. Whoever ran from us was gone. But something inside the trailer mattered enough for them to protect it. I pulled open the rusted door carefully. The smell hit first. Dust. Damp cardboard. Old wood. My flashlight swept across stacks of abandoned crates until the beam landed on a folding table in the center of the trailer. A coffee cup still warm enough to steam in the cold air. Somebody had been sitting there less than 5 minutes ago. Beside the cup sat a manila folder with my name written across the front in black marker. Ethan Cole. My stomach dropped. Rain hammered the trailer roof while Rex climbed inside beside me, growling softly toward the shadows in the far corner. I opened the folder slowly. Inside were photographs. Surveillance shots. Me leaving my apartment. Me walking into precinct headquarters. Me standing beside Rex outside a diner 3 nights ago. Somebody had been following us for weeks. Then I reached the final photo and everything inside me went cold. It was a picture of my younger brother Daniel stepping out of his car outside his elementary school in the suburbs that morning. On the back, written in clean block letters, were 6 words. You were never supposed to find this. The drive to Daniel's apartment felt longer than any interrogation I had ever survived. Rain blurred across the windshield while the manila folder sat open on the passenger seat beside Rex, every photograph inside feeling heavier than the loaded service weapon under my coat. Somebody knew where my brother lived. Somebody knew his schedule. And somebody wanted me afraid enough to walk away from whatever I had stumbled into inside that warehouse. Rex kept staring at the folder the entire drive. Every few seconds his nose twitched toward the photo of Daniel like he could smell danger trapped inside the paper itself. You think they are watching him now? I asked. Quietly. Rex let out a low sound deep in his throat. Not quite a growl. Not quite agreement. Just instinct. Chicago looked colder near the suburbs. Less neon. Fewer sirens. The streets stretched quiet beneath rows of sleeping houses while Christmas lights still hung from porches even though January had already settled deep into the city. Daniel lived in a small second-floor apartment above a hardware store 10 miles from downtown. Safe neighborhood. Good schools nearby. The kind of place people moved when they wanted distance from trouble. Trouble always finds family anyway. I parked across the street and cut the engine. One light glowed inside Daniel's apartment kitchen. Relief hit me hard enough to make my hands loosen around the steering wheel for the first time all night. Stay close, I whispered to Rex as we crossed the empty street. The cold air bit through my soaked coat immediately. My phone buzzed again halfway to the stairs. Unknown number. Same as before. This time I answered. Silence. Just faint static breathing through the speaker. Who is this? I demanded. More silence. Then a man's voice. Calm. Older. You should have listened to Vincent Hale. Every muscle in my body locked instantly. Who are you? I asked. The voice ignored the question. Go upstairs, detective. See what happens to people who get too curious. The line disconnected. I was already moving before the call fully ended. Rex sprinted ahead of me up the metal staircase 2 steps at a time. The apartment door stood slightly open. My stomach dropped so fast it felt physical. Daniel never left doors unlocked. Ever. I pushed inside carefully, hand near my weapon while Rex swept through the living room barking sharply. The television flickered with static. Kitchen light still on. Half a cup of coffee sat on the counter beside an open math workbook covered in red grading marks. Daniel had been home recently. But the apartment was empty. Daniel? My voice echoed through the silence. No answer. Rex moved toward the hallway leading to the bedroom, nose low against the carpet. Then he stopped beside the kitchen table and whined softly. I followed his stare downward. A single chess piece rested in the center of the table. Black King. Underneath it sat a folded note written on hotel stationery from downtown Chicago. My pulse pounded in my ears as I opened it slowly. 3 words written in sharp black ink. Ask your father. I stared at the sentence while rain tapped softly against the windows behind me. My father had been dead for 15 years. At least that was what I had believed my entire life. My father died in a car accident when I was 12 years old. That was the story. Simple. Clean. Easy enough for 2 boys to accept while standing in black suits beside a closed casket on a freezing November afternoon. I remembered my mother crying so hard she could barely stand. I remembered Daniel holding my hand during the funeral because he was only 6 and terrified of cemeteries. And I remembered one other thing. Rex was not there. Because I had not met him yet. Which meant whoever left that note knew things buried deeper than police records. Rex paced the apartment restlessly while I stared at the black chess piece sitting beneath the kitchen light. My father used to play chess every Sunday morning before he died. Same black king every game. The edges worn smooth from years of use. My chest tightened slowly as memory crept back in pieces I had not touched in decades. One rainy afternoon. My father leaning across the board smiling faintly while telling me something I never understood as a kid. When people hide the truth, Ethan, they never hide all of it. At the time I thought he was talking about chess. Now I was not so sure. My phone buzzed suddenly in my pocket, nearly making me jump. Daniel. Relief hit me so hard I answered before the second ring. Where are you? I demanded immediately. Heavy breathing answered first. Wind noise in the background. Then Daniel's voice, shaky and confused. Ethan. I think somebody followed me home tonight. Every muscle in my body tightened again. Are you safe? I do not know. His voice dropped lower. There was a black SUV parked outside the school this afternoon. Same vehicle followed me halfway home. I drove around for 30 minutes before losing it. Rex stopped pacing instantly when he heard Daniel's voice through the speaker. Ears alert. Focused. Listen carefully, I said. Do not go home tonight. Go to Maggie's cabin near Lake Geneva. Use the back roads. Call nobody except me. Silence for a second. Then Daniel asked the question I had been trying to avoid asking myself all night. What is happening? I looked down at the note again. Ask your father. Rain slid softly down the apartment windows while somewhere outside a train horn echoed through the suburbs. I think Dad lied to us, I admitted quietly. Daniel laughed once. Nervous. Disbelieving. Dad has been dead 15 years. Maybe. The silence after that word felt enormous. I heard Daniel breathing harder through the phone. "Ethan, just go," I interrupted. "Right now." The call ended a few seconds later. I slipped the note into my coat pocket while Rex walked to the apartment door before I even gave the command. Smart dog. Smarter than most detectives I had worked beside. 20 minutes later we were back on the highway heading downtown through sheets of freezing rain. The city skyline glowed ahead like something half-drowned beneath storm clouds. My mind kept circling one impossible question. If my father was not dead, then whose funeral had we attended? Rex suddenly stood upright in the passenger seat, staring through the windshield. A pair of headlights appeared behind us far too fast. Black SUV. No license plate visible through the rain. It stayed exactly 3 car lengths behind no matter how fast I drove. Then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. This time a text message appeared across the screen. "You should have stayed out of the warehouse, Ethan." The black SUV stayed behind us through every turn like it already knew where I was going before I did. Rain flooded the streets in silver rivers while downtown Chicago glowed through the storm ahead, skyscraper lights flickering behind low clouds that looked heavy enough to collapse onto the city. Rex stood with his front paws braced against the dashboard, eyes locked on the headlights following us in the mirror. He had stopped growling. Somehow that felt worse. Rex only went quiet when he was thinking. "I know," I muttered softly, tightening my grip on the wheel. "I see them too." The text message still glowed across my phone screen from the cup holder beside me. "You should have stayed out of the warehouse, Ethan." No threats. No demands. Just certainty. Like whoever sent it had been watching my entire life unfold one wrong decision at a time. I cut sharply beneath the Wabash overpass, tires hissing through standing water. The SUV followed instantly. Same distance. Same speed. Professional. Most people tail too close when emotions get involved. These people stayed calm. Disciplined. Trained. My pulse slowed instead of rising. Detective instincts taking over. "Hold on," I whispered to Rex. I accelerated hard through a yellow light near Canal Street just as cross-traffic surged forward. Horns exploded behind us. Headlights swerved wildly. For half a second the SUV vanished behind a wall of traffic. Then it reappeared 2 blocks later anyway. Persistent. My stomach tightened. Whoever they were not giving up tonight. The city smelled like wet asphalt and smoke drifting from rooftop vents while sirens echoed faintly somewhere downtown. Midnight Chicago had always felt alive to me. Restless. Breathing. But tonight the whole city felt like it was watching. Every passing window. Every empty train platform. Every reflection in the rain. I reached for the glove compartment and pulled out the old photograph I kept hidden beneath registration papers and parking tickets. The edges were worn soft from years of being folded and unfolded. My father standing beside a lake cabin smiling into the camera with one hand resting on my shoulder. I was maybe 8 years old. Daniel was missing from the photo because he had not been born yet. What mattered was the background. A wooden sign barely visible behind us. Lake Geneva. My chest tightened slowly. Maggie's cabin was near Lake Geneva too. Maybe coincidence. Maybe not. Rex suddenly barked once. Sharp. Urgent. I looked up just in time to see the SUV accelerating directly toward us from the left lane. Not enough to hit us. Just enough to force a choice. I jerked the wheel hard onto a side street lined with old brick warehouses and empty loading docks. The SUV overshot the turn by inches before circling back. They are pushing us somewhere, I realized aloud. Rex stared toward the dark alley ahead like he already understood. Then my phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered immediately this time. "What do you want?" Silence crackled through the speaker for several seconds before a woman's voice answered softly. Calm. Controlled. Familiar somehow. If you want your brother alive, she whispered, do not trust Vincent Hale. The line disconnected instantly. At the exact same moment, Rex lunged upward, barking furiously toward the sidewalk ahead. A man stood beneath a flickering streetlight in the rain wearing a dark wool coat and black leather gloves. Vincent Hale. Vincent Hale looked completely out of place standing alone beneath that flickering streetlight, like a man waiting for a business meeting instead of the center of a nightmare. Rain rolled down the shoulders of his charcoal coat while expensive black shoes soaked in dirty water near the curb. The black SUV behind us slowed gradually before stopping half a block away with its headlights still burning through the storm. Rex barked harder the second he saw Vincent, claws scratching against the dashboard as if every instinct inside him demanded distance from the man outside. I stepped out into the freezing rain slowly, hand near my coat pocket, while Vincent watched me with the same calm expression he carried inside the warehouse earlier that night. Your timing is incredible, I said coldly. Vincent ignored the sarcasm. You need to leave Chicago tonight. The rain hammered around us while trains rattled overhead somewhere beyond the alley. Funny, I replied. A woman just called and warned me not to trust you. Something shifted in Vincent's face for half a second. Not anger. Regret. Then she is already too close, he murmured quietly. Rex jumped from the vehicle before I could stop him and landed beside me, ears pinned back, growling low at Vincent with enough intensity to make the air feel heavy. Vincent looked down at the dog and slowly removed one leather glove. A long scar crossed the side of his wrist. Rex froze instantly. The growling stopped. His entire posture changed. Confusion. Recognition. My stomach tightened. Why does he know you? I asked sharply. Vincent looked at Rex for several silent seconds before answering. Because I met him years ago. Rainwater dripped from Rex's fur while he stared at Vincent without blinking. Then something happened I had never seen before. Rex stepped closer to him. Not aggressively. Carefully. Like a dog approaching someone tied to an old memory. Vincent knelt slowly despite the freezing pavement soaking through his clothes. You remember me, do not you, boy? He whispered softly. Rex sniffed his hand once and whined. My pulse pounded harder instantly. Talk, I demanded. Vincent stood again, older now somehow beneath the streetlight. More tired. Your father worked for me before he disappeared. The words hit like ice water down my spine. Disappeared? I repeated. You said disappeared. Not died. Vincent looked directly into my eyes for the first time that night. Because your father never died, Ethan. The city noise around us seemed to vanish completely. No rain. No traffic. No sirens. Just silence pressing against my chest hard enough to hurt. You are lying, I said automatically, but my voice sounded weaker than I wanted. Vincent shook his head slowly. Your father was an undercover federal asset investigating corruption inside Chicago law enforcement nearly 15 years ago. The operation collapsed after someone leaked names from inside the department. My heartbeat slowed dangerously. Who leaked them? Vincent glanced briefly toward the SUV parked behind us. That is what your father has spent 15 years trying to discover. Rex suddenly barked sharply toward the black SUV again. One of the rear doors had opened. A tall figure stepped out holding an umbrella against the rain. Female. Blonde hair visible beneath the streetlight. She started walking toward us calmly. Vincent's expression darkened instantly. Get back in the car, he said under his breath. Right now. Who is she? I asked. Vincent did not answer immediately. His eyes stayed locked on the approaching woman while rain streamed down his face. Then he whispered 7 words that made my Blood run cold. That is the woman who buried your father. The woman moved through the rain without hesitation, black umbrella tilted slightly above her shoulder while the headlights from the SUV stretched her shadow across the flooded pavement. She looked to be in her early 50s. Blonde hair tied neatly behind her head. Dark wool coat expensive enough to belong in a government office instead of an alley soaked in freezing Chicago rain. Rex stepped closer to me immediately, posture rigid again, deep growl building in his chest the closer she came. Vincent Hale looked genuinely unsettled for the first time all night. "Get out of here," he muttered quietly without taking his eyes off her. "You still have time." "No," I said sharply. "I am done running in circles." "Who is she?" The woman stopped several feet away beneath the flickering streetlight and studied me with an expression that felt strangely familiar. Not cold. Not threatening. Worse. Sad. "You look exactly like him," she said softly. Her voice carried the calm precision of someone used to being obeyed. I was hoping that was not true. Rainwater dripped from the edge of her umbrella while traffic hummed faintly somewhere beyond the alley. "Start explaining," I demanded. She glanced briefly toward Rex. "And that dog," she whispered. "I cannot believe he is still alive." Rex barked once. Sharp. Protective. The woman nodded slowly like she understood the warning. "My name is Eleanor Graves," she said. 15 years ago I supervised a federal intelligence operation involving your father." My chest tightened again. "You buried him." Eleanor lowered her eyes briefly. "I buried his identity." The words hung heavy in the rain between us. "Your father uncovered a network moving information through local law enforcement, private contractors, and political offices across Illinois. Judges. Detectives. Federal agents. People with enough power to erase entire investigations overnight." Vincent stepped beside me slowly. "The leak came from inside the operation itself," he added quietly. "Once your father realized that, he disappeared before they could eliminate him. You expect me to believe he abandoned his family? For 15 years? I snapped. Eleanor's expression hardened slightly. "He believed staying away was the only thing keeping you and your brother alive." Rage burned through my chest instantly. 15 birthdays. 15 Christmas mornings. 15 years watching my mother cry herself to sleep believing her husband was dead. And somewhere out there my father had simply vanished. "Where is he?" I demanded. Eleanor hesitated. That hesitation told me more than her answer did. "He was supposed to contact us 3 days ago," she admitted quietly. "He never showed." The rain suddenly felt colder. Rex stepped forward again, nose twitching hard toward Eleanor now. Not aggressive. Focused. He circled her once slowly before stopping near the SUV. Then he barked directly at the rear passenger door. Eleanor's face changed instantly. Fear. Real fear. "No," she whispered under her breath. Before anyone could react, Rex lunged toward the SUV barking violently. The rear door swung open slowly from inside. My breath caught instantly. An older man stepped out into the rain wearing a dark flannel jacket and gray baseball cap pulled low over tired blue eyes. He looked thinner than the man from the photograph in my glove compartment. Older. Worn down by years that had not been kind. But I knew that face immediately. Every childhood memory hit me all at once. Chess boards. Fishing trips. Sunday pancakes. The smell of cedarwood aftershave. My father stared at me across the rain-soaked alley with tears already forming in his eyes. Then his voice broke quietly after 15 years of silence. "Ethan." For a moment I could not breathe. The rain kept falling. Cars still moved somewhere beyond the alley. Rex barked softly beside me. But everything else disappeared beneath the weight of one impossible truth standing 20 feet away. My father looked older than memory allowed. Gray streaks cut through his dark hair. Deep lines marked the corners of his eyes. He carried exhaustion like a permanent shadow beneath his skin. But he was alive. After 15 years of funerals and photographs and silence, he was standing in front of me breathing the same cold air I was. "You do not get to say my name like nothing happened," I finally said, my voice breaking harder than I wanted. My father lowered his eyes briefly. "I know. That hurt more than excuses would have." Rex stepped forward slowly through the rain until he stood directly in front of my father. For one long second neither moved. Then my father knelt carefully onto the wet pavement, his shaking hand reaching toward the German shepherd's face. "Hey, buddy," he whispered. Rex stared at him intensely before pressing his head gently against my father's chest. The sound that left my father afterward barely sounded human. 15 years of grief collapsing all at once beneath a flickering Chicago streetlight. I looked away because suddenly I could not trust my own emotions anymore. Eleanor stood silent beside the SUV while Vincent watched the alley entrance constantly like he expected danger to appear any second. "You should not have come back," Vincent muttered quietly. My father rose slowly, wiping rain from his face. "I did not come back for me." He looked directly at me then. "The people hunting you now are the same people who destroyed our family 15 years ago." Lightning flashed overhead, illuminating the alley in pale blue light for half a second. "Then tell me who they are," I demanded. My father reached into his jacket carefully and removed a small weathered notebook wrapped in plastic. Every name I uncovered. Judges. Officers. Federal contacts. Everyone connected to the network. He handed it toward me but stopped before I could take it. "Once you open this, they will never stop chasing you." I stared at the notebook while rainwater rolled down my hands. The thing looked ordinary. Cheap. Worn. But somehow it carried 15 years of lies inside it. "Why now?" I asked quietly. "Because somebody inside the network finally exposed themselves." My father glanced toward Eleanor briefly. 3 days ago an agent was murdered before delivering evidence to federal court. Eleanor closed her eyes for a second like the memory physically hurt. "We believe the leak is still active inside Chicago Police Department," she added softly. My stomach tightened immediately. Every strange call. Every vanished witness. Every dead lead. Somebody had been watching my investigation from inside my own department the entire time. Rex suddenly growled low again, ears lifting toward the far end of the alley. Vincent turned instantly. Headlights approached slowly through the rain. Not one vehicle this time. 3. Black SUVs moving in perfect formation. My father's face changed immediately. Fear. Real fear. "They found us," he whispered. The first SUV stopped at the alley entrance while silhouettes stepped out beneath the storm. One man moved forward calmly holding an umbrella over his head. Tall. Broad shoulders. Familiar posture. My pulse froze before I even saw his face clearly. Detective Marcus Reed. My partner.